Sir, what are you doing sitting here? Waiting for my flight, gate K18. What does it look like? What's inside the case? Sir, I need you to open the case. You serious? A guitar case? I need you to open it. Why? I haven't moved from this seat. Open it now, or I'll call the police. For sitting at my gate?
Open the case. The words cut through the noise of Terminal 3 like a blade through still water. No greeting, no badge introduction, no reason given. Draven Cole looks up from his tablet. Slow, measured. His eyes move from the screen to the man standing over him. A security contractor in a gray uniform, arms already crossed, jaw already set, like he has decided something. "Excuse me?" Draven says. "I said open the case. Now." Draven glances down at the navy blue guitar case leaning against the bench beside him. Then back up. He does not reach for it. He does not flinch. He sets his tablet face down on his knee with the same calm a surgeon uses before the first cut. "There's no TSA flag on this case," Draven says. "No airline complaint, no probable cause. I'm not opening anything." The security guard, the name tag on his chest reads, Harrow, takes one step closer. His voice drops, not quieter, colder. "Sir, I'm telling you to step away from the weapon." The word hangs in the air. Weapon. A woman across the aisle looks up from her phone. A teenage boy in a hoodie 3 seats down freezes mid-bite of a granola bar. The gate intercom crackles softly in the background. Flight 447 to Los Angeles. Boarding at 10:02 a.m. But nobody at gate K18 is thinking about boarding. Draven Cole does not raise his voice. He does not stand up. He does not reach into his pocket or his bag or anywhere. And he simply looks at Clifton Harrow with the kind of stillness that comes from knowing exactly who you are and exactly what is happening to you right now. "It's a guitar case," Draven says. Quiet. Exact. Like he is reading from a statute. "And you're detaining a federal contractor." Harrow pulls the radio from his belt. Have you ever watched a situation turn in real time? Not slowly, not with warning, just turn. Like flipping a switch in a room full of people who did not know the light was about to go out. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit subscribe. Because this story does not go where you think it goes. And every chapter matters. If you're just joining us, welcome. Take a breath. This story is going to take you somewhere important. Stay with it all the way through, because what happens next changes everything. So the call Harrow made lasted 47 seconds. 47 seconds to describe a man sitting still in an airport terminal as a threat requiring police response. By the time he clipped the radio back to his belt, Draven Cole had not moved a single inch. Airport surveillance footage would later confirm that. He had been seated at gate K18 for 22 uninterrupted minutes before Harrow approached him the first time. 22 minutes of reviewing data on a tablet. In noise-canceling headphones around his neck, a guitar case covered in travel stickers parked beside him. No argument started. No commotion made. No raised voice. No suspicious movement. 22 minutes of a man simply existing in an airport. And then Clifton Harrow decided that was enough. The timestamp on the dispatch audio reads 9:14 a.m. Outside, Chicago presses its 38-degree cold against every terminal window. Inside gate K18, the air is about to get much colder. 4 minutes. And that is how long it takes for the police to arrive. And when they do, Draven Cole is already in handcuffs. Gate K18, Terminal 3, Chicago O'Hare International Airport. 38 degrees outside. The kind of cold that reminds you Chicago means business, even in the morning. Inside, the terminal runs its usual controlled chaos. Rolling suitcases, coffee cups, gate agents calling rows. A departure board flickers. A child tugs at his father's sleeve. The 10:02 a.m. A flight to California is still on schedule, its boarding announcement dropping every few minutes like clockwork. Draven Cole had a meeting to make on the other end of that flight. Not a casual lunch, not a routine check-in, a meeting tied to a Department of Defense subcontract, the kind of meeting where preparation matters, timing matters, showing up sharp matters. He had planned for all of it. He had arrived early, he had found his seat, he had opened his tablet and gotten to work. That is who was sitting at gate K18 when Clifton Harrow walked over. A man early for a flight. A man working. A man who had done everything right. But here is what the camera confirmed. In the entire 22 minutes before Harrow's first approach, not one airline employee flagged Draven. Not one TSA officer raised a concern. Not one passenger filed a complaint. The guitar case had already passed through security screening. It had been cleared, checked, waved through without a second glance. So what changed between TSA screening and Gate K-18? Nothing changed about the case. Airport footage later confirmed he hadn't moved for 22 minutes. What changed was who was watching. Draven Amara Cole is 34 years old. He does not look like what most people picture when they hear the words aerospace acoustics consultant. Not because of anything he does wrong, but because most people have never had to picture someone like him in that role before. And that gap in imagination is exactly how this story starts. He grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, third of 4 children, in a house where quiet meant focus, and focus meant opportunity. His mother worked double shifts as a hospital administrator. His father taught high school physics for 21 years. Draven spent his childhood pulling apart broken speakers to see why they hummed wrong and reassembling radio equipment in the garage until the frequencies ran clean. By 16, he could diagnose vibration interference in audio equipment by ear alone. He earned a full academic scholarship to Georgia Tech, studied mechanical engineering with a concentration in acoustic dynamics, graduated in the top 4% of his class, spent 4 years afterward as a research analyst with the United States Navy, working on vibration suppression systems for military aircraft. The kind of work where a single miscalculation in sound frequency could compromise an entire fleet operation. He left the Navy with a clearance level most people will never hold and a reputation for 2 things: precision and documentation. Every report filed on time. Every data set triple verified. Every anomaly logged, flagged, and followed up in writing. His supervisors described him in performance reviews using words like methodical, thorough, and exceptionally composed under pressure. He built his consulting practice from that same discipline. By the time he walks through O'Hare on this particular February morning, Draven Cole has completed work on 11 separate federal contracts, 3 of them tied directly to active Department of Defense programs. But he understands federal procurement law the way most people understand traffic rules. Not just the written code, but the unwritten ones. He knows what probable cause looks like. He knows what an unlawful search looks like. He knows the difference between authority and the performance of authority, because his career has required him to know. He is also deeply, quietly, unhurried in who he is. That morning, he wore a maroon hoodie, clean black jeans, and white low-top sneakers. Noise-canceling headphones hang around his neck. His carry-on bag, a structured charcoal gray duffel, sits neatly under the seat. On the bench beside him, the guitar case leans at a slight angle. Navy blue hard shell, scuffed at the bottom left corner from years of overhead bins and baggage carousels, covered in travel stickers from Austin, Nashville, and Seattle. On his tablet, a waveform simulation runs across the screen, added acoustic vibration data from a component he will be presenting in California that afternoon. The numbers are clean. The presentation is ready. His boarding pass is already pulled up in another tab. He is exactly where he is supposed to be, doing exactly what he is supposed to be doing, with everything in order. He had arrived early. He always arrived early. The meeting in California was connected to a multi-million-dollar subcontract renewal. Missing it was not an option, which is why Draven had planned his morning down to the last detail. Left side parking garage, TSA pre-check lane, 22 minutes of quiet work time at the gate before boarding. And he had executed that plan without a single deviation. Which means that when Clifton Harrow appears in front of him with crossed arms, and that word, weapon, Draven Cole is not just a man being wrongly targeted. He is a man with a paper trail, a clearance, a legal education embedded in lived experience, and the kind of composure that does not crack under pressure. The guitar case beside him holds a 1968 Martin D28, one of the most respected acoustic guitars ever made, insured for $18,000, a possession he inherited from his late uncle, a session musician who played on recordings that charted in the top 20. He carries it everywhere he travels. Always declared, always documented, always cleared. Clifton Harrow has no idea what he is walking toward. So Clifton Harrow has worked airport security at O'Hare for 8 years, not as a city employee, as a contractor, one of several hundred hired through a private security firm under a municipal contract, a firm that manages access control, terminal patrol, and threat assessment for 3 of the airport's 4 terminals. He has worn the same gray uniform for 8 years. He knows every gate in Terminal 3 by number. He knows the shift rotations, the supervisor schedules, to the security camera blind spots. He knows the job. What the job file does not say, but what an internal records request will later reveal, is that Clifton Harrow has collected 4 prior complaints in 8 years. 4 separate incidents in which passengers filed formal statements using the same 2 words. Racial profiling. 4 times the complaints landed on a supervisor's desk. 4 times they were reviewed. 4 times the conclusion was the same. Insufficient evidence. Not innocent. Not cleared with cause. Insufficient evidence. The bureaucratic equivalent of filing something away in a drawer and never opening the drawer again. After the 3rd complaint, the security firm's internal review board recommended mandatory anti-bias training. A refresher course, 16 hours, scheduled and confirmed for the following quarter. Harrow's performance file shows the course listed as completed. What the training vendor records show is different. His attendance was logged on the system, but his participation hours were never verified. Nobody followed up. Nobody required proof of completion. The contractor's oversight procedure had a gap in it wide enough to walk through, and Harrow walked through it. The last anti-bias training Clifton Harrow actually attended was in 2019. By 2024, his performance reviews describe him with a word that gets used so routinely in security evaluations that nobody stops to examine what it really means. Assertive. Assertive. Not precise, not procedurally sound, not thorough. Assertive. There is a version of assertive that means confident and effective. There is another version that means a man who has learned that authority feels better when it goes unchallenged, and who has had 4 chances to be corrected and wasn't. Harrow is the second version. The people who reviewed his complaints were not bad people necessarily. They were people inside a system that rewarded the path of least resistance. A contractor who kept shifts covered, showed up on time, and filed his incident reports without complaint was more valuable to the daily operation than a contractor who kept generating paperwork. The 4 complaints were paperwork. The resolution was always the same. Move on. Harrow learned something from those 4 resolutions. He learned that his judgment would be protected. He learned that as long as he used the right words, suspicious, uncooperative, potential threat, refusing to identify, the institution would stand behind him. The words were the shield. He uses them with the ease of someone who has practiced. That morning, when he approaches Draven Cole for the first time, Harrow already has a word chosen. He uses it in the dispatch call. He uses it when he tells Draven to step back. Weapon. In the deposition, months later, Clifton Harrow will be asked a very specific question under oath. He will answer it. He will not realize, in the moment he answers it, that the answer has just ended his career. But that is not yet. What matters right now is that Harrow is walking back toward Gate K-18 for the 2nd time. He already made 1 approach. Draven cited policy. Draven did not comply. And Harrow, a man who has spent 8 years learning that resistance should be met with escalation, does not walk away from resistance. He picks up the radio, and he makes the 47-second call. The question nobody in the terminal is asking yet, the question that will be argued in a federal courtroom and dissected in a city attorney's internal memo, is this: why did he approach the same man twice? What happened between the first approach and the second one that made Clifton Harrow reach for that radio? It starts with a question, the kind that sounds polite on the surface until you hear the tone underneath it. Sir, what's in the case? Draven pulls one side of his headphones away from his ear. He looks at Harrow. He takes in the gray uniform, the crossed arms, the posture that is already angled toward confrontation rather than inquiry. A guitar, Draven says. See, what kind? Acoustic. Harrow's eyes move to the case, then back to Draven. I'm going to need you to open it. Draven does not move toward the case. He sets his headphones fully around his neck and turns to face Harrow with complete, unbothered attention. Has TSA flagged this case? Harrow does not answer the question. Has any airline staff filed a complaint? Draven continues. Still no answer. Then you don't have grounds to request a search, Draven says. I've already cleared security, so this case has already been screened. I know airport search policy. He does not say it loudly. He does not say it with heat. He says it the way a man says a thing he has known for a long time. I'm going to decline. Harrow stares at him for 3 full seconds. Then he walks away. That is phase 1. Most people watching from across the terminal look away after Harrow leaves. The moment seems over. The man in the maroon hoodie goes back to his tablet. The gate agent makes another boarding announcement for a different flight. The terminal breathes again. But 3 seats down, a woman in her 50s named Bernadette Okafor has not looked away. She watched the whole exchange. She is a retired schoolteacher from Evanston, traveling to see her daughter in Sacramento. She has seen enough in her life to know that some situations do not end when a person walks away. Sometimes walking away is just collecting something before coming back. But she watches Harrow cross the terminal. She watches him pick up the radio. She watches his mouth move, and she quietly opens her phone's camera. That is the moment the case against Clifton Harrow begins. Not in a courtroom. Not in a lawyer's office. In the quiet, unremarkable decision of a woman who has seen enough to know she should press record. 9:14 a.m., 47 seconds. The dispatch audio, obtained later through a public records request, it captures Harrow's exact words. I have a suspicious male at gate K18, Terminal 3, refusing to identify himself, possibly concealing a weapon inside a guitar case, requesting police response. 3 things in that statement are factually wrong. Draven identified himself immediately when asked. He showed his boarding pass and federal contractor ID during the first exchange without being asked twice. He was not refusing to identify himself. He was refusing to open a bag without probable cause. The guitar case was not concealing a weapon. It had been through security screening 23 minutes earlier without any flag. And Draven was not suspicious. He was sitting. But the word suspicious is doing something specific in that dispatch call. It is not describing behavior, it is replacing it. It takes the place of an actual observed threat and fills the space with feeling, with the conclusion that Harrow had already reached before he ever crossed the terminal floor. 4 minutes pass. 3 Chicago police officers arrive at gate K18. The body cams activate. And in those 4 minutes, the terminal has noticed. A man in a business suit 2 rows back has his phone raised. The teenager who froze over his granola bar earlier is now quietly filming from his seat. Bernadette Okafor has not lowered her camera once. Gate K18 does not feel like a gate anymore. It feels like a stage. The 3 officers fan out around Draven's bench. Their movement is practiced, instinctive, the kind of positioning that comes from training. They are not hostile, not yet, but they are arranged in a way that makes the message physical before anyone says a word. You are surrounded. Draven looks at all 3 of them. He does not stand up. He does not reach for anything. He places his tablet face down on the bench beside him in the same slow, deliberate motion he used when Harrow first approached. His hands go visible, open, resting on his knees. Sir, we need you to open the case, the first officer says. Can you tell me what the basis for the request is? Draven asks. We received a report of a suspicious item. A guitar case that passed through TSA screening is not a suspicious item. What's the legal basis for a secondary search at the gate? The officer glances at Harrow, who is standing 6 feet back with his arms folded. Nobody answers. Not for 5 full seconds. In those 5 seconds, a toddler in a stroller 3 rows over begins to cry. Sharp and sudden. The way toddlers cry when they sense the temperature of a room change without understanding why. The gate intercom fires off another announcement. The departure board above the gate flickers. The crowd that has gathered in the peripheral sightlines of gate K18 does not move, does not look away, does not lower their phones. One of the officers steps closer. Sir, open it now, or you're being detained. Draven Cole looks at that officer, then at the second officer, then at Harrow. His jaw does not tighten. His hands do not move. He exhales once, slow and steady. And when he speaks again, his voice carries the particular weight of a man who is not angry, who is something far more dangerous than angry. He is recording everything in his mind. "What statute," he says, "are you invoking to detain me?" Silence. And the kind of silence that fills a room when no one has an answer, and everyone knows it. The first officer reaches for his cuffs. Draven does not resist. He does not shout. He does not cry or beg or argue. He stands when they tell him to stand, and he puts his hands behind his back, and he looks straight ahead at the departure board above Gate K-18, the one that still reads Flight 447 to Los Angeles, on time, 10:02 a.m. The cold metal clicks around both wrists. Over the airport intercom, a calm, automated voice fills every speaker in Terminal 3. "Attention passengers, there is a security issue at Gate K-18. Please remain calm." Calm. Inside the navy blue guitar case, undisturbed, untouched, exactly where it has been since Draven packed it that morning. A 1968 Martin D-28, one of the finest acoustic guitars ever made. Cleared by TSA. Documented. Insured. Not a weapon. Never a weapon. But that is not the most important thing inside that case. But the most important thing is what Draven Cole put in the front zipper pocket before he left for the airport that morning. And when his attorney opens that zipper 4 months later, everything changes. The zipper is still closed. That is the first thing Draven's attorney, Camille Renee Ashford, notices when she reviews the case materials 4 months after the arrest. Not the handcuff photographs, not the dispatch audio transcript, not the passenger video footage that has already been viewed 11,000 times on a private legal evidence platform. The zipper on the front pocket of the guitar case, still closed, untouched, never opened by any officer at Gate K-18, because they never actually searched the case. They arrested a man for refusing to open a case, and then never opened it themselves. Camille sets the photograph down on her desk and writes one word in her legal pad: procedure. She circles it twice, but rewind. Now back to Gate K-18. Back to the moment the cuffs click. Draven stands, hands behind his back, eyes forward. The departure board above him still reads Flight 447, Los Angeles, on time, 10:02 a.m. A flight he will not be on. A meeting he will not make. A subcontract worth millions sitting on hold, while a man who did nothing wrong gets walked away from his own belongings in front of 200 witnesses. The 3 officers escort him through the terminal. Not quickly. But the path through Gate K-18 toward the security office is long enough that every person seated along that corridor sees it happen. A man in a maroon hoodie, hands cuffed behind him. A gray uniformed security contractor walking behind the officers with the composed expression of a man who believes he has done the right thing. Draven does not look down. He does not look at the floor or his feet or the faces watching him. He keeps his chin level, his breathing slow. Because he understands something in that moment that most people in handcuffs do not have the mental clarity to access, that every second of this is evidence. Every camera he passes, every officer's body cam running, every phone still raised in the terminal behind him, he is being documented. And so are they. The security holding room is a small, fluorescent-lit office off the main corridor between Terminals 2 and 3. 1 table, 4 chairs, a camera mounted in the corner. Draven is seated without explanation. His belongings, including the guitar case, are brought in and placed against the wall behind him. Nobody opens the case, nobody examines it, nobody fills out an evidence form for it. It sits against the wall. Zipper closed. Front pocket untouched. A supervisor arrives 17 minutes later. He reviews the incident report Harrow has already filed. He reads it for approximately 45 seconds. Then he looks at Draven. "Sir, do you have identification?" Draven looks at him with the patience of a man who has answered this question 3 times already. "I showed my boarding pass and federal contractor ID to the original officer during the first approach," he says, before he walked away and called the police. The supervisor blinks. He looks back at the incident report. The incident report says, "Subject refused to identify himself." Draven watches the supervisor read that line, and he watches the supervisor's expression shift. Not dramatically, not with any kind of visible alarm, but in the small, specific way a person's face moves when they realize the story they were handed and the story in the room are two different stories. "Am I being charged with something?" Draven asks. Silence. "Am I free to go?" More silence. But this kind is different. This silence has an exit in it. They release him 26 minutes after the arrest. No charges filed. No explanation offered. A supervisor hands him a form acknowledging the release, and Draven signs it with the pen in his own pocket. Because he came prepared for everything, including this. He misses Flight 447. He sits in a chair outside the security office, guitar case on the floor beside him, and he pulls out his phone. He does not call his family first. He does not post anything. He opens his notes app, and he begins typing, line by line, every detail he can recall from the past 43 minutes. Timestamps. And names, exact words, officer badge numbers he memorized while being escorted through the terminal. Every single thing documented. In the front zipper pocket of that guitar case, untouched and undiscovered by every officer who handled it that morning, is a laminated federal contractor travel letter, issued by the Department of Defense, with Draven's name, clearance level, contract reference number, and a direct contact line for his program officer. The kind of document that, had anyone actually opened the case and looked, would have ended the entire incident in under 60 seconds. Nobody looked. And that detail, becomes the most powerful sentence in the entire federal lawsuit. The body cam footage runs for 11 minutes and 42 seconds. Camille Ashford watches it 17 times before she files anything. Not because she cannot follow what is happening on screen, because she is looking for the exact moment, the frame, the word, some of the body movement, where the legal case becomes unbeatable. She finds it at the 4-minute, 31-second mark. That is the moment Clifton Harrow, standing 6 feet behind the lead officer, says 6 words under his breath that the body cam microphone catches with uncomfortable clarity. 6 words that were never meant to be recorded. 6 words spoken in the casual tone of a man explaining something obvious to a colleague. He just doesn't look right. That is not a procedure. That is not probable cause. That is not a threat assessment or a security evaluation or any of the trained documented language of a certified airport security contractor. That is a feeling. And that feeling has a name. Camille writes the name at the top of the legal brief in capital letters. Racial profiling. Beneath it, in smaller print, she writes the case citation that will carry the entire lawsuit. 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. Unlawful detention. Civil rights violation under color of law. But the body cam footage is only one layer. The airport CCTV system covers gate K18 from 3 separate angles. Angle 1, mounted above the gate agent podium, captures Harrow's first approach in full. The wide shot shows something the body cam cannot. The terminal around Draven in the 22 minutes before Harrow walks over. Dozens of passengers seated, standing, moving, rolling suitcases, backpacks, large duffel bags. A man with a hardshell equipment case twice the size of Draven's guitar case sitting 3 seats to his left. Harrow walks past that man without slowing down. He walks past a woman with a cello case propped against the window. He walks past a teenager with a hard-sided camera case on his lap. He walks directly, without hesitation, without pausing at any other passenger, to the one seat where a black man in a maroon hoodie is working on a tablet. The CCTV does not lie. It does not editorialize. It simply records direction, and direction tells a story that no defense attorney can untangle. The dispatch audio is the 3rd layer. Camille has the transcript, but she listens to the actual recording 12 times because there is something in tone that a transcript cannot carry. Harrow's voice on that call is not urgent. It is not the voice of a man who has just witnessed something alarming, but it is the voice of a man narrating a conclusion he reached before he ever picked up the radio. Calm. Practiced. Every word chosen for the report it will generate, not for the reality it is supposed to describe. Then there is the deposition. Clifton Harrow sits across the table from Camille Ashford on a Tuesday morning in October. His attorney is beside him. A court reporter types at the end of the table. The room is small, and the fluorescent light above them hums in the same frequency as the one in the airport security office where Draven sat 3 months earlier. Camille opens a folder. She does not rush. She asks Harrow to walk through his account of the morning of the incident, step by step, from the moment he first observed Draven Cole. Harrow talks for 9 minutes. Then Camille asks him one question. Mr. Harrow, when you first approached Mr. Cole, before he said a single word to you, what specifically prompted you to select him for inquiry rather than any other passenger in that terminal? Harrow looks at his attorney. His attorney does not react. Harrow looks back at Camille. He says, I considered it unusual for someone dressed casually in that demographic to be carrying that type of case in that context. The court reporter's fingers stop for half a second. Then they continue. Camille does not react. She writes something in her notepad. She flips to the next page. That one sentence is the hinge. That one answer, given voluntarily, without coercion, under oath, in the careful but careless language of a man who has always been protected. That sentence becomes the viral clip that circulates across legal forums, civil rights networks, and newsrooms for weeks after the settlement is announced. Because what Harrow said translated from the evasive language of someone trying to sound procedural. And is this? He approached Draven Cole because of the way he was dressed and because of his race. He called it demographic. The law calls it something else. And the complaint history seals it. 4 prior complaints, all citing the same pattern. Passengers of a specific demographic approached without cause, asked to open bags, questioned about their presence in areas they had every right to occupy. 4 complaints internally reviewed. 4 times the conclusion. Insufficient evidence. Camille's investigator pulls the training vendor records. The attendance logs do not match the completion certificates. The security firm's oversight director, when deposed, cannot produce a single document showing that Harrow's anti-bias training was verified as completed after 2019. The firm's contract with the city requires annual verification of bias training completion for all active personnel. The city's oversight department has no record of ever auditing that requirement. Yet the institution did not just fail to stop Clifton Harrow, the institution built him a runway and kept it clear. Now, there is one question left for the city attorney's office to answer, sitting in a conference room with Camille Ashford across the table. How much is this going to cost? The first offer arrives 8 weeks after the lawsuit is filed. $180,000. The number is written on a single sheet of paper. It's slid across a conference table by a city attorney named Douglas Merritt, who has handled municipal settlements for 19 years, and carries the practiced ease of a man who has seen outrage priced and packaged many times before. Camille Ashford looks at the number. She does not pick up the paper. She slides it back across the table without breaking eye contact. We'll be in touch, she says. Douglas Merritt watches her stand and gather her files. He is already recalibrating. And he has read her brief. He has watched the body cam footage. He has read the deposition transcript, and specifically the 6 words from the CCTV audio and the 1 sentence from Harrow's deposition that together form a legal argument his office cannot dismantle piece by piece, only try to settle before it reaches a jury. He knows the number is not serious. He offered it anyway, the way you test a floor by stepping on it lightly before you commit your full weight. The floor holds. Boy Camille files supplementary evidence 3 weeks later. The training vendor discrepancy. The CCTV footage showing Harrow bypass 11 other passengers with similar or larger cases before approaching Draven. A comparative analysis of incident reports filed by Harrow over his 8-year tenure showing that 91% of the suspicious person calls he initiated involved individuals of color, despite the terminal's documented demographic distribution. 91%. That number does not appear in the original lawsuit. Camille's investigator built it from public records over 6 weeks. When she adds it to the supplementary filing, Douglas Merritt reads it on a Friday afternoon and schedules an emergency internal review for the following Monday morning. The internal memo produced from that Monday meeting is 2 pages long. One line in the second paragraph, later obtained through a public records request, reads, Body cam exposure risk high. QCCC TV pattern analysis presents significant liability. Recommend accelerated resolution before discovery expansion. Accelerated resolution. What that phrase means in plain language, settle this before a jury sees everything. The second offer comes 4 weeks after the supplementary filing. $450,000. Camille calls Draven that evening. He is in his home office in Atlanta, where he has been working remotely since the incident cost him the California subcontract, a loss that his billing records document at $230,000 in direct contract value and an undetermined amount in future referral potential. They moved, Camille tells him. Not enough, Draven says. He is right. The mediation is scheduled for the following month. Neutral location. Both parties present. Draven attends in a gray suit and a white shirt, no tie. The same quiet precision in his appearance that defines everything else about how he moves through the world. He carries a leather portfolio. Inside, it is a printed copy of every document, every timestamp, every evidence item. Not because he needs to reference them, but because the act of carrying them is its own statement. He already knows all of it by heart. The mediation runs for 6 hours. Camille presents the case in 4 sections: unlawful detention, civil rights violation, institutional negligence, and documented financial harm. Each section is supported by evidence the city attorney's team has already seen and cannot credibly challenge. By hour 5, the negotiation is not about whether the city will pay. It is about how much it costs them to make this quiet versus how much it costs them for the world to watch a full trial. The number that comes back is $721,000. Draven is quiet for a long moment after Camille tells him. Saying, "What about the policy?" he asks. That was never in question for him. Not really. The money was documentation of harm. The policy changes were the point. The settlement terms include 3 institutional requirements alongside the financial figure. First, mandatory bias awareness retraining for all contracted security personnel at O'Hare, verified by an independent third party. Second, a revised search escalation protocol requiring documented probable cause before any secondary gate search can be initiated. Third, an independent review procedure for all suspicious person reports, with quarterly audits submitted to the city's oversight board. These are not suggestions. They are binding terms with enforcement provisions. Draven reviews each one. He initials each page with the same steady hand he uses to sign off on federal contractor documentation. The settlement is finalized on a Thursday. 2 weeks before the ink is fully dry, the security firm terminates Clifton Harrow. No press release, no public statement. A termination letter delivered to his address citing conduct inconsistent with contractual standards. His security licensing authority is notified per standard procedure. He is gone. No handcuffs, no gate full of witnesses, no intercom announcement asking anyone to remain calm. Just a letter. And a door closing. Nobody apologizes. Not the airport, not the city, not the security firm. Not a single official, board member, supervisor, or spokesperson steps in front of a microphone and says, "We were wrong, and we are sorry, and that should never have happened to Draven Cole." That is not unusual. That is how institutional accountability almost always works. The settlement agreement contains standard non-admission language. The city neither admits nor denies wrongdoing. The money changes hands, and the policy changes are implemented, the paperwork is filed, and the public-facing story of what happened at Gate K-18 never gets a proper ending because the institution that caused it has no legal incentive to give it one. No apology. But here is what does happen. The airport board restructures its contractor oversight committee within 90 days of the settlement. 2 new independent seats are added, filled by representatives from a civil liberties organization and a university-based civil rights research center. Their mandate is specific: review all contractor incident reports quarterly, flag patterns, and issue public findings. The first quarterly report is released 4 months after the restructuring. It finds 11 additional incidents in the prior 2 years that share a documented pattern with the Draven Cole case. 11 incidents that were reviewed internally and closed without consequence. 11 families who never got a settlement. 11 incidents that would never have been caught without the independent review procedure that Draven Cole demanded as a condition of his. The mandatory bias retraining rolls out across all 3 terminals. An independent vendor, not the same firm that falsified Harrow's completion records, administers it. Completion is verified in person. So attendance is cross-referenced with scheduling records. The gap that Harrow walked through for 5 years is closed. The revised search escalation protocol goes into effect 30 days after settlement finalization. It requires officers to document specific observed behavior before initiating any secondary search at a gate. Not a feeling, not a demographic assessment, not the word unusual deployed as a substitute for evidence. Specific, observable, documented behavior. A supervisor must approve every escalation request before police contact is made. The protocol is 1 page long. It should have existed before 2024. It did not. Clifton Harrow's professional licensing review is completed 6 months after his termination. The review board finds a pattern of procedural irregularities across his 8-year tenure consistent with the deposition testimony and incident report analysis. His security contractor license is suspended pending a compliance hearing, and he does not attend the hearing. His license is revoked. The system that built him, protected him, cleared him 4 times, and handed him a radio every morning for 8 years. That system has moved on. New personnel, new protocols, new quarterly reports. The institution has processed its own failure and filed it in the appropriate drawer and continued operating. That is what institutions do. They survive their own mistakes by reclassifying them as lessons learned. But here is the question that does not have a clean answer, the one that sits at the edge of every reform document and every revised protocol and every independently verified training certificate. What about the people who came before Draven Cole? The passengers who did not have a federal contractor ID in the front zipper pocket. The ones who did not know the statute. The ones who did not have Camille Ashford's number. The ones who opened the bag because they were scared or tired or alone, and then went home and told the story to someone who believed them but could not help them. What did they get? That question follows Draven Cole out of the mediation room, past the settlement paperwork, through the press silence and the institutional non-apology, all the way to the decision he makes with the money. He keeps enough to cover Camille's fees, the lost subcontract revenue, and a modest fund for future legal protection. The rest he does something unexpected with. Oh, and even his attorney did not see it coming. Draven Cole stands at a podium in a conference room at a civil rights law center in Washington, D.C., 11 months after the morning at Gate K-18. He is not there to accept an award. He is not there to give an interview. He is there to introduce something he built with the remainder of the settlement money, a fund called the Aviation Civil Rights Documentation Initiative. The name is precise. That is on purpose. The fund does not provide financial compensation to travelers who have been wrongly detained, searched, or profiled at American airports. It provides something Draven considers more valuable than money in the moment of crisis. It provides documentation. The fund operates a 24-hour hotline staffed by trained legal advocates. When a traveler is detained without cause, they can call the number. An advocate walks them through exactly what to record, what to ask, what to request in writing. He's what to decline and how to preserve every piece of evidence from the first 30 seconds forward. The advocate stays on the line. They log every detail in a secure case file that is immediately time-stamped and stored. Because the most important thing Draven learned on the morning of his arrest is not a legal principle or a civil rights statute. It is something simpler and harder than both of those things. Most people do not know what to do in the first 30 seconds. And the first 30 seconds are everything. If you do not document the right things in the right order from the moment it begins, the institution will document the wrong things first. And their version will have a file number and a supervisor's signature before yours has a single word written down. Harrow filed his incident report before Draven was even released from the holding room. That report said, "Subject refused to identify himself." That report was wrong. But it existed in an official file for 4 months before Camille's filing corrected the record. 4 months where the city's legal team operated on the assumption that the report was accurate, because reports filed first tend to shape the story longest. The Aviation Civil Rights Documentation Initiative changes that dynamic. It puts a trained legal advocate on the side of the traveler from the first phone call, and it ensures their account is documented with the same speed and formality that institutional incident reports receive. The fund also serves a second purpose. Every documented case it handles, with consent from the traveler, is added to a national pattern database, not for individual lawsuits, for policy, for the kind of evidence that shows oversight committees and city councils and congressional subcommittees not one incident, not 4 complaints filed and dismissed, but a sustained, documented cross-regional pattern of travelers being targeted by race, appearance, and what one deposition transcript called demographic context. Draven does not describe the fund as his legacy. He describes it as his next contract. Same discipline, same documentation, same precision. Applied not to vibration suppression in military aircraft, but to the suppression of a different kind of frequency, the quiet, persistent frequency of bias written into procedure, cleared by committees, and then filed under insufficient evidence. The 1968 Martin D-28 is back in its navy blue case, back home in Atlanta. Draven plays it on Sunday evenings, the same way his uncle did, in the quiet of a home office where the bookshelves hold federal procurement manuals beside vinyl records, beside a framed copy of the settlement agreement. Not because he is proud of what happened, but because he believes that what you frame on your wall says something about what you refuse to forget. As the final line of the settlement agreement, visible in the frame, reads, "This agreement shall not be construed as an admission of liability." Below it, in Draven's own handwriting on a yellow sticky note pressed to the glass, 4 words. The record speaks anyway. That is the end of this story. But here is the truth. This story is not rare. What made it different was not the injustice. Similar incidents happen in airports, train stations, parking lots, churches and lobbies across this country every single week. What made it different was the documentation, the body cam, the CCTV, the dispatch audio, Bernadette Okafor pressing record from 3 rows back, Draven typing his notes in the chair outside the security office while the timestamp was still fresh. Bias rarely announces itself. It writes reports, and the only thing that beats a report is a better one. Do you think $721,000 was enough? Or does real accountability require something that money cannot buy? Drop your answer in the comments. This conversation matters, and your perspective is part of it. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, share it. Put it in front of someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like Draven's don't spread on their own. They spread because people like you decide they should. And if you are not subscribed yet, do it now. Turn on notifications. And because the next story on this channel is already being built. Another case, another truth, another moment where ordinary people faced extraordinary pressure. And what happened next will stay with you long after you stop watching. Don't miss it. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and thank you for staying all the way to the end. That says something about who you are.